Turkey has carried out Operations Eagle Claw and Tiger Claw, the most comprehensive operations in recent years, within the scope of its perpetual counter-terrorism strategy implemented in its region in the recent period against the PKK terrorist organization in Iraq. As there is an increase in the attempts of the terrorist organization PKK to infiltrate into Turkey through Syria and Iraq, these operations are conducted to prevent the further destabilization of the area. In other words, the purpose is to prevent the attempt to establish a terror corridor along the Turkish-Iraqi and Turkish-Syrian borders. Turkey is carrying out the aforementioned operations due to the strategy to prevent its attempts to interrupt the terror corridor, which it has succeeded in Syria thanks to Operations Euphrates Shield and Olive Branch. The major factor in carrying out these operations is the fact that the Baghdad central government and the Iraqi Kurdish regional government have failed to develop a military measure against the presence of a terrorist organization in Iraq. In particular, it should not go unnoticed that the Iraqi administration, which is conducting a large-scale military operation against the presence of the terrorist organization Daesh in Iraq, has failed to take adequate measures against the PKK presence in Kandil, or lacked the capability to do so. While the impacts of Turkey's fight against terrorism in the region after 2015 have had a significant impact on terrorist organizations, it has put forward the radical aspect of the PKK terrorist organization. In particular, the terrorist acts against civilians and natural resources, the use of radical leftist groups, and also the cases of child abduction confirmed by international reports rendered Turkey's claw operations inevitable once again. The operation was initiated when the terrorist organization's strategy to strengthen the Sinjar structure and its efforts to introduce a Kandil-like restructuring in Sinjar were also supported by some international actors. Operation Eagle Claw is now recognized as the most comprehensive and complex air operation that has been conducted by Turkey in recent years. Camps of the terrorist organization and transit routes located along the Turkey-Iraq border were targeted with pinpoint operations. Successful assaults were carried out on the camps in Sinjar, Karacak, Kandil, Zap, Avasin, Basyan, and Hakkırk regions. Air bombardment, especially on the areas far from the border such as Makmur and Karacak, was a move that the terrorist organization had not expected. More than 25 fighter jets conducted air operations against the previously determined targets simultaneously with armed unmanned aerial vehicles, armed UAVs, and according to a specific priority. The command structure, warehouses, and shelters of the terrorist organization spread over a broad area were neutralized. The high-tech Operation Eagle Claw paved the way for the Operation Tiger Claw in the same regions. Turkey launched the Operation Tiger Claw 2 days after the Operation Eagle Claw, which has been conducted against the PKK terrorist organization in Iraq as part of its perpetual counter-terrorism strategy that has been ongoing in the region since June 22, 2015. Turkish commandos first entered Haftanın and then other regions where terrorist organizations are active with fire-supporting vehicles such as attack helicopters, armed UAVs, and UAVs, in order to neutralize all terrorist elements, especially the PKK terrorist organization. The reason for giving priority to Haftanın was the fact that the terrorists were using the area to infiltrate into Turkish territory. 150 targets were hit in the first moments of the operation in that region. In the first 36 hours, this figure exceeded 500. Operation Tiger Claw, which was carried out on a 300-kilometer line and in an area where no Iraqi security forces were present, first aims to isolate Kandil and then increase the pressure in the Sinjar region. The next target is to cut off the terrorist organization PKK's connection with Syria and its support to the organization's Syrian branch, YPG, and of course, to prevent the establishment of a terror corridor. Disengaging the terrorist organization's link between Iraq and Syria means bringing an end to the latest terrorist acts committed by the YPG against civilians in Syria. A section of the public in the U.S. has held Antifa responsible for the acts of violence and protests that have been going on in the USA since May 26th, and there is an ongoing debate in the U.S. regarding the group being designated as a terrorist organization, especially after U.S. President Donald Trump called for this designation. There is one question which remains unanswered. Why does the US support Antifa in Syria? In 2014, the Obama administration partnered with the YPG, the Syrian branch of the US-designated foreign terrorist organization, the PKK. The YPG exploited this partnership to expand Öcalan's so-called democratic confederalism model in Syria, and built up a safe haven and gathering place for all kinds of radical leftists from all across the world. While some of the YPG's militias were embedded in the PKK's armed structure for long, Western radical leftists first got armed training from the YPG in 2012. Kevin Joachim, a German anarchist, joined the YPG and even became a commander. Antifa was the most interesting ally of the YPG. Some Antifa members even engaged in direct military combat against a NATO state and formed a special battalion to fight against Turkey's military operation in Afrin. On the other side, Antifa members were calling in American airstrikes. A report named The Untold Story of Syria's Antifa Platoon quotes Karim Franceschi, an Antifa member who states that the YPG handed him a tablet with GPS and satellite maps to request American airstrikes in Syria. Foreign radical leftist militants and Antifa members have not stayed in Syria after receiving training on arms, but went back to their homes. At home, these veterans are propagating the militant model of the YPG like defense communities and sharing their experience with their fellow fighters. The question which has to be asked is not who Antifa is, but rather why American taxpayers are financing an entity whose violence is a problem for them.